I am Paula. I host the Knitting Pipeline podcast, which is an audio podcast. You can find my blog at knittingpipeline.com. You can find me on Ravelry as Knitting Pipeline. You can find me on Ravelry, that's not. You can find me on Ravelry as PrairiePiper and on Instagram as Knitting Pipeline. Okay, I gotta get in the swing of this here. All right, I have some knitting to show you, and I have quilting, which I will try to remember to put in the bar down below or in the information when the quilting starts. And then I have a transitional project that I need your advice on. So let's get started here. I have a pair of socks I finished. They're a man's size 12. I used Kate Atherley's basic sock 3-in-1 rib. Here's one. Whoops, sorry. I hit my computer, that's not good. This is a man's size 12. There we go. And oh, this yarn, this is Cakewalk Yarns. It's no longer available. She was a pioneer in yarns, Rhodes, because I think she was the first person that I know of that did speckled yarns. Now, there might be somebody who did it before, but she was certainly one of the first. Let's just put it that way. And this yarn was so gorgeous to knit with. It, I don't know, get it up here. You can see there's subtle variations in a dark red and then little flecks of a dark, really dark maroon. There's a little bit of green in it. Oh, it was so great to knit with. Sorry, that's not available. I did a traditional heel flap and gusset and picked up. And so that's probably going to be birthday socks for one of my August birthday boys' sons, but I don't know. I know my husband would really like these, and those are his size too. So we'll see if I can get 2 more pair done, I might give these to my husband. So I'll see those more if he has them, so then I can enjoy it that way. I am in Helen Stewart's Shawl Society, the collection, and I'm so far 2 for 2. She's coming out with 1 shawl each month, and the June one was Talisman, and this is my Talisman. I'm going to get up so you can see it better. I used Malabrigo. It's their, I can't think of what it is. It's the fingering, I don't have notes today. So it's the fingering that is a single. And the color is Jupiter. I do remember that, but it's in my show notes. So I'm really good at putting that information on Ravelry so you can go in there and see it. And I use a size 3 needle. As you can see, it's a crescent shawl, and then it has this star design in there that really kept my interest because stockinette, just miles of it, sometimes fun, but it's nice to have a little oasis along the way. And then I love the picot. I'm a picot fan. I know a lot of people don't like picot. Why? It's gorgeous. I love it. The shawl without the picot, no, it has to have it. And then just a simple lace pattern that merged out of the stars. And wow, I know I am going to wear this a lot. And not when it's 90 degrees. It's not 90 today. It was 90. It was really, really hot last week. But yeah, there you go. I mean, without the picots, I just think it loses quite a lot. So open mind. All right. Now, the second one, I don't know if I'm going to show you that today because I'm trying really hard to only show you knitting that has already been on the audio podcast, because in my head, that's the way it has to go, and then I get confused. So the second one is called Talisman, and I have, no, this is Talisman. The second one's called Amulet, and I have finished that as well. This is a shawl by Justina Lorkowska. It is large, very large, probably one of the largest fingering weight shawls I've made in recent memory. I think the wingspan on this is 7-8 feet maybe. And it's called Holy Rude, which is in Edinburgh. Get a little closer so you can see. I used Eden Cottage yarns. I think it's called Harewood is the fingering, and she specializes in very subtle colors. Let's see, you're looking at the, oh, here we go. So I have Antique Rose is the pink, and then Steel is the gray. And I bought the yarn at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival at the Eden Cottage booth. As you can see, there's sections. So it keeps your interest because you're going along doing the garter, and then you have a lace section that transitions. It's 2 colors and then it transitions. And it has stripes. My accidental modification is that I did too many stripes. I glanced down at my pattern and I saw that, I thought I saw 8 repeats, and I did that. And then I looked down and realized that I had actually seen that on another section. So for that, in the actual one, this stripe section is only half the size that it is on mine. And then in the original pattern, the border, boy, this is awkward. The border is striped, but I didn't think I had enough, and I'm pretty sure I did not have enough to stripe the border. And I think I like it better as a solid border. I barely had enough to even do this much. I had 2 grams left of the pink. I added beads on the border. I think I'm blocking my own light here, but they're just clear beads that I got from Gilding Lilies on Etsy, who is Melly. She has really good service, and so they're just a little bit of bead right along here, and I think it adds a little bit to the shawl. Yeah, I enjoyed it. The lace was not intuitive for me, but it wasn't that it was difficult. It just, I don't know. I did rate it medium difficulty because of the lace and just the size of the project, because a lot of people just, for me too, these really long rows can be kind of tedious, especially if I just made sure I didn't have any made. I kept checking. And that was the other thing. I said this on the audio. There weren't, I'm an obsessive counter when it comes especially to lace and shawls and stuff. I count everything a lot to make sure I'm on track. Once I get the lace set, not so much. Well, I'm not doing such a good job here, but this, there were intermittent row counts. Sorry, those beads are knocking all over the place. There were intermittent row counts, but there were times when I just kind of had to figure out, oh, I know there's this many stitches added each row, and so therefore here I should probably have this many, but I just prefer to have more frequent row counts. But other than that, and then this is the one, I told this on the audio episode, and I'm going to share it here too, that I finished this and I washed it and went out to block it, and I put it on the guest bed, and all of a sudden I saw this dropped stitch, and I don't even think I can find where I fixed it. I know what section it was in. It was in this gray section down here, but where it was just happened to be where there were no yarn overs. It just went straight down, and it was so simple to fix. All I did was get some of the gray yarn and do a little duplicate stitch, making sure that I locked in those stitches. And how it didn't go any further with because I washed it, and I have an alternative, what's it called? A laundry alternative spinner that spins all the excess water out, and going through that and then carrying it downstairs, smoothing it out on the bed, and oh my goodness, that was a bit of a heart stopper. But this is, yeah, so this is Holy Rude by Justina Lorkowska. She has another one. I actually bought the yarn to make Isling, which is a similar type shawl that she designed also for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, but it had an applied border instead of border that's just continued from the knitting. And I was afraid I would run out of yarn on that border. And I did run out of yarn on this too. I don't know if I said that this is supposed to be wider, deeper. I think there are 2 or 3 more rows of lace on the border, but it's plenty big for me. This is a huge shawl, and it doesn't really need to be bigger. I don't know. I'm not one that feels I have to use up all the yarn for a project, because quite honestly, especially on a crescent shawl, you can add quite a few rows and it doesn't affect the size all that much. So I would rather be working along knowing that I have plenty of yarn to finish a project than be trying to eke it out just so I can use everything up. Okay, this next project, I might have to step out of the frame a little bit, but this next project, you will not believe this, but I need your advice. Not that part you won't believe, but just how long this has been an unfinished project in my home. I was a student in Denmark. I went on a Ravelry fellowship and was there for a whole year. I went to university in Aarhus, and I lived with a couple of families for about 4 months. I was there just to learn Danish. So my Danish teacher at the University of Illinois, I had 1 year of Danish before I went, he would have students over every Wednesday to his home, and he and his wife would have tea, which meant a meal really, in the British sense of tea. And they had we would only speak Danish when we were there. We could not speak English, not one single word. So if you didn't understand something, he would explain it in Danish, and he was so good at it. He was excellent. And then when I came back from Denmark and I was in graduate school, I still went to their house every Wednesday afternoon or 5 o'clock and had tea with them. So she had this map of Denmark done in cross stitch in their living room. Here it is. So I got it in my head that I wanted to make this. And I didn't know, this was after we moved here. I decided I wanted to make it, and I was getting into counter cross stitch. I had not done it at the time that I was there at her house, and I didn't learn to do it in Denmark. So I wrote to her and asked her where she got the pattern. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to close out. My mail must be open here. Okay, I'm gonna step out of the frame for just a sec. Everything's happening now. So one day, well, she told me, well, actually, I think that I wrote to her and asked her about the pattern, where I could get it, and she wrote a letter to me with a package. And I still have the original letter that she wrote. It's all in Danish, of course. She had perfect English too, but the whole point of going to their house on Wednesdays was to speak Danish. And she says, I'm rough translation here. She says, and now about the cross stitch pattern of the map of Denmark. It's sitting here next to me, and I am not sure that I have all the colors or the guide for the colors. And she says she'll look for those. And then she said, the pattern is yours. I have sewn 3 of these, and I am not thinking that I will pursue it again, if it can be avoided. Enough is enough. That she goes on. So not only did she send me the pattern, but she sent me all the thread that goes with it and more. I think she sent me all of her Danish thread, which is gorgeous, gorgeous thread. Sorry, I have to do a little crinkling here. So I haven't told you yet the date of this, but the letter is dated the 17th of May. Happy Norwegian holiday, Independence Day. The 17th of May, 1983. Wow. I believe I got started on it pretty quickly, although I did have to find the linen. And I'll be so glad when they finish that house next door. Wouldn't you know, they decided to run a saw today. Okay, here it is. Sorry about that noise. Hopefully it won't go on too long. They poured concrete today and they are finishing up. So here's the map, and it's small. And it's from Honarbeides Flemma, which is a cooperative. And they have if you're on the walking street in Copenhagen, they have a store there. At least they did, 40 years ago. But anyway, they have a store there, and it means promoting or encouraging handwork. So here's even the map of where the store used to be. And this is in perfect condition. This, as knitters, you might enjoy seeing some of the Icelandic sweaters and things. I think I might need to stop until whatever they're doing there. Take a little break while they just stopped. Okay, hopefully that'll be the end of that. So my dilemma here, and here's what the pattern looks like. I don't know if she's enlarged it, and I have so many sheets of it because I've probably copied some, and I color coded some of it. That's upside down. It's like this. I started on it. I would get it out periodically and work on it and think, this is it, I'm going to finish it. But there was a lot of stitching in this. It's pretty good size. And the pattern, everything's in English and Danish on there. So apparently I thought that I was, let me show you the thread first because it's so pretty. This is the thread for this project, and then there's a whole nother bundle of other thread in there. It's kind of messy, but you can see that it's an naturally dyed, I think, and it's not, there's no glossiness to it. It's a matte color. I don't think this one is actually in it, but anyway, that is the Danish. It's called Danish flower thread. And so apparently I was pretty sure that I was finishing it in 1993 because I went ahead and put the date in. Yeah, there you can see it. And I was going to put my initials either below or above that. Is that 93? 91. Oh, yeah, 91. I thought I was going to finish it. Here again is the whole thing. Denmark's a lot of islands. Most of them aren't even on here. There's lots of islands. So many of them uninhabited. I heard one time 400. I heard 500. But the big islands are on here, the ones that are inhabited. And those are the Danish names for them. So this is 95% finished. What is the stumbling block? The stumbling block is that there's some petit point in here. I think it's called petit point or petite point. It looks like petit point to me, which is not exactly cross stitch. It's more like needle point, I think, because from what I can gather, I made myself a little punch list here. I said, look up petit point. And then I listed the things on the map that I still need to do. And they're all in petit point, except for the date, which I'm thinking what I'm going to do, because we got married in Denmark, and that was one reason I wanted the map, because I wanted to, have that to show. And then why I put 1991 on there, I don't know, because it seems like it would be more logical just to put the date the year that we were married instead of the date that I finished it. What difference does that make? Especially now. So, oh my goodness. So when I have a project that has lain for a while and I don't know where I am on it, I think the best thing for me is to come up with a plan of action. And that's why I did this little punch list. Like, what do I need to do first to finish it? I need to figure out what petty point is and how to do it. And then once I figure that out, the only things that need to be done are Copenhagen, that's Copenhagen, Himmerland, and Vendsyssel. Those need to put in there. And then trees. And then add initials, wedding date, and then maybe our names. I don't know. That was when I thought I could do petty point. So I looked it up. Didn't seem too hard. Plus I had my new glasses, better magnification. Last night I tried to do it and I can't see it. So I don't know how people do it. Well, first of all, my linen, when I got this, I don't know where I got it, but the threads are irregular. There's fat threads and skinny threads. And on the petty point, you're only going over one thread, and it's tricky. It's very tricky. So I guess my dilemma now, because last night I spent about, I don't know how long, but you can see where the needle is. There's just a little bit there I tried to do, and it didn't go well at all. Plus it was miserable. So I'm asking for advice. Should I find somebody that can do this or help me with it? Or should I just leave it? I really want the whole map. I want those things on it, but I don't think I can do it. And I'm thinking, instead of adding another date on here, I'm thinking of just taking out the 91, just taking out those two, just take out 9-1 and put in the year that we were married there and call it a day and get this thing done, because from 1983, I'm pretty sure I started on it when I got it. And yeah, it's an old whip. About 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, I don't remember, time flies, you know. But I was cleaning and organizing, and I just got everything that was unfinished. All my projects, that little tiny quilt I showed last time, that was one of the things. And I just went through and made a punch list and made a list that, okay, it's either finish it or just get rid of it. And this is the last thing I have. And I've said on the audio, I don't have a lot of knitting projects that are half finished. If I get part way and I don't like it, I just take it out, and I don't get bored generally with a project. So I am a 1 to 2 person project at a time. 1 to 2 project person, I should say. So generally I have something that requires a little thinking and something that I can take with me, and that's about it. But that's what floats my boat. I don't like having a lot around, partly because it simplifies your life to just have 1 or 2 things. If you have a bunch of things out, it's kind of messy, and it also, you have to make more decisions, like, what do I work on now? So for those of you who don't understand, that's part of that's part of it. Okay, so anyway, what do you think? I'm kind of leaning towards just leaving those things off and changing the date and finishing this thing, because I think it's had a fair chance. And then I'll get it framed, I guess, which will cost a fortune. But, well, anyway, so that's my map of Denmark. And I love that I had the original. I think when I have it framed, I might put this on the back of it, and then I would maybe put her letter back there too, so that, yeah, it's just, so here's the other thread that she sent me. And once I'm done with this, I could use that thread in other projects. But later on, I'm going to talk about this book when I get into the quilting section. This book, Patchwork Loves Embroidery. And I told myself, you cannot start one of these until you finish that, one way or another. So that's what I'm going to do. have not acquired yarn. I'm going to Stitches next week, or by the time this gets out, maybe this week, but I did acquire some yarn, I should say. I am doing a test knit for Hannah Fettig for her new book called Texture, and it calls for Quince & Company Lark. Quince & Company is publishing the book, and I bought a sweater's worth of this for the test knit, and the color is Audouin, A-U-D-O-U-I-N. That's probably not the pronunciation, but I really love this. It's a heathery, natural color. So that is what I'm doing the test knit. I'm swatching for it now, and this is the only yarn I've had come into my stash since the last time we spoke. So I think that's it for knitting, and we'll move on to quilting now. Hi, we're back with quilting now. I have several finished projects and also some new things to share with you with quilting. Remember when I was doing the Quilt As You Go, I had what I thought might be a finished quilt, and then I said I decided to add more squares to it. So I did that, and then I ended up finishing it off and putting the backing and the binding on. So this is using the Quilt As You Go by Jira Brandvig. And I used various reproduction fabrics like 1930s and such. I'm not going to be able to get it all in the frame here, so I'll turn it. You can see there the blocks are mostly different. There are a few like there we go, that one, that are all just the strip quilting, but for the most part, I got pretty bored with that. So I started doing, wonky blocks and pinwheels, and I was going to show you my favorite block, but I don't know where it is now. And then joined them together with these strips of white. On the back, I used flannel this time, so it's just a soft flannel, and I really like that. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the binding here because I thought I got a really good suggestion from one of the ladies at Peddler's Way Quilt Company. I'm going to get this up a little bit closer. This measures, by the way, I think it's about 48 by 60, so it's a really nice throw size. You might be able to use it on a small bed, like a, one of those, maybe not a twin bed, but a child's bed that goes from, one step up from the crib. But I ran into the quilt shop one afternoon when they were about ready to close, trying to find something that I could use for the binding. And I think it was Pam in there that helped me. And she found this right away in the reproduction area of the shop. And she said, I love a diagonal stripe. Now the fabric is actually printed on the bias, or the stripes are on the bias. So you don't have to cut, because you can cut the binding on the bias and do it that way. But this way, you don't have to do that. You can cut it straight. And this is called Fresh Air by Sandy Klopp, but I'm not sure the maker of the fabric. And it was just perfect because it has, as you can see, most of the colors that are in the quilt have those colors in there. So I just thought it was perfect. And she gave me a tip. She said that she looks for this type of fabric where the print is on the bias, so that she has it in her stash, and then when she has a quilt that needs binding, she might be able to use one of those. So I'm sort of on the lookout for those now too. This quilt is made, no, that's the next one coming up. This is just all different things. I think most of it was Darlene Zimmerman, Robert Kaufman. There might be some Moda in there, and I really, really like it. The only thing I need to do is put a date on it when I made it, because I'm trying to be better about doing that. So you won't be seeing that one again. We're done with that. And then the next quilt I finished is for a friend, and it is a baby quilt, and I absolutely love this little quilt. It just turned out so great. I didn't use a pattern per se, but I just used a technique that I learned. Oh, I think I probably learned it from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. So this is the quilt. There we go. It is 36 by 36. And what I did for the patches here, they're basically, I used a charm pack here. Charm pack from Robert Kaufman, Pretty Posies by Darlene Zimmerman. And I think okay, so anyway, I used a technique. Okay, those are basically, well, they're 16 patches, but they're 4 patches, and then you put four patches together to make a 16 patch. But I didn't want to do the whole quilt just all like that, so I had the idea of just breaking it up a little bit by using a plain fabric, and I actually picked that up as a fat quarter at Joann Fabrics for 74 cents, the blue. And then, oh, I didn't finish telling you how I made the 4 patches. Anyway, I'll try to link to that in the show notes, where it's a quilt by Missouri Star Quilt Company, but I didn't do the whole quilt. I just used her version of making the 4 patches out of the 5-inch squares. So I did that, and then I put the border on and added the cornerstones. But the quilt was kind of small. It was only 30 by 30. And so I went to the quilt shop thinking, well, maybe I'll get something else, some other reproduction fabric to add to it. And I found this. I was almost ready to give up. And I found this fabric for this border. And it says off-white, and then it says love you all through it in script, and then has little hearts on it. It is so precious. And I'm so glad the quilt needed a little bit more width, because this going around it, and then I picked up the same fabric that I used in this border to make the cornerstone here. And this is a little bit wider border than the other one, so it added about 3 inches on each side. So we have a 36 by 36 instead of a 30 by 30, which I think is great. I then found this fabric for the binding, which is not a reproduction. It was just in another area, and I thought it was perfect. It just has a little bit of a modern funkiness to it, and picks up the greens and the reds, and it's a tonal. The background on the red is not all solid. I also backed this with flannel, and I did free motion quilting, which you can actually see really well here on the back. I'm not sure flannel is the best material for when you're going to do this type of quilting, because I wanted the back to be really soft, and when you do that much quilting on it, it's not really soft. But I mean, it's not different than it would be if it were just straight cotton, and flannel's pretty cheap if you get it at Joann Fabrics or something like that. That wasn't why I picked it at all, and I think it's really cute. It's a little polka dot. I put my KnittingPipeline, oh, of course it would be the last side I would come around. I put my KnittingPipeline tag on the binding, and then I made a patch for the new mother to put on the quilt. And some of you may know her because she's actually a podcaster, but I don't want to say who it is quite yet. And what I did here, I made this little patch with a heart. I appliqued the heart on there and then did the binding around so that she can write the baby's name and birth date, and then she can either use a fusible bond or just a whip stitch and put this patch on the back of it. And then I did just a plain muslin square so that she could practice a little bit with a pen, because you never know how a pen's going to work on the fabric. And this is on freezer paper. This is a little trick I learned some time ago from Nancy, who sometimes finishes my bigger quilts for me, that you can use an iron and fuse your fabric to freezer paper. And that makes it easier then to write on, because you need a stiff backing or else your pen is going all crazy. So I'm going to send that along. Maybe, I don't know if I have time to go get a pen, because I want to get this off in the mail tomorrow, which is why I'm trying to get this done today. But yeah, that baby quilt I think is just adorable, and I know the person will really, really like it. Oh, I left my other thing downstairs, so I might have to go get that later. But let me show you a couple of acquisitions here. I'm trying not to accumulate a lot of fabric, but sometimes sometimes the temptation is too strong. And I've already taken this out of it wasn't in a shrink wrap, I don't think. It was just in a, plastic. And I took my lint remover roller and rolled all over this thing. You would be amazed how much stuff comes off of a jelly roll. This jelly roll I purchased on, I think I got this on Missouri Star Quilt Company. It's called Welcome Wagon by Henry Glass and Company. And it has a lot of fall colors in it, and I thought it'd go really well with my Kansas Troubles. Sometimes I think the Kansas Troubles fabrics look too homogeneous, so throwing in a little something different, and I like to do that actually whenever I can, if I'm using a collection like this, to throw in at least a couple of ones that are not part of the collection, because then I think it just adds a little bit to it. This is making my nose itch here. But I'm not going to break it open. I'm so tempted to use this, but because I think the fall colors, and it's August, and I think by the time I finish a quilt, it'll be fall and I can use this. So I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's one of those impulse purchases, I guess. I have to stop buying fabric, but I did buy something else, of course. So this I've already shown you. This is from Birch Fabrics. I bought this collection because my daughter-in-law really likes it, and I think at some point I'll make a quilt for my granddaughter with this. And I believe this is double gauze, and I got that from Fabric Worm, but then this came up on Mass Drop. And I've told you about Mass Drop. Nancy got me onto that too. It's a site that you can, it's like Groupon, only you can sign up for a certain type of product. And I'm only in the sewing quilting one. And this collection came up and I signed up for getting it. And these are fat quarters. I'm going to bring it a little bit closer so you can see. And I thought that it went pretty well with this. And this alone might not be enough for a quilt, for a bed, so it's going to need either some background fabric, but again, throwing in some fabric that's not part of that collection might be a good thing. But if not, I love all this too. So these just make me so happy to look at them. If you love yarn, you can understand that. If you love fabric, you can understand that. And then I think the day I went in to get the binding for one of those quilts, I made quite a few trips to the quilt shop. I'm so fortunate that Peddler's Way Quilt Company is right on Washington Square. It's like 2-3 miles from my house, and they're open on Sunday afternoons. They're open on Mondays. So they're very accessible for me, and the ladies are so helpful. I know a lot of them by name now, and they're really good at helping me select things, and they know the fabric there at the shop really well. So one day I went in there and I was buying some of the fabric or binding, and I saw this book. It's Patchwork Loves Embroidery, Hand Stitches Pretty Projects by Gail Pan. That way. Okay, there you can see it better. Do the opposite of what. Okay, so this is a little needle holder, and I just thought it was a beautiful book. Let me show you the back, because the back has some projects on it. A pillow, a sampler, a project bag with embroidery on it. I mean, they're really precious. They kind of have a old school feel to them. And then the designs are in the book. You can photocopy. I actually bought a light box as well. Well, these things happen. I don't know how. But there's some gorgeous projects in here. However, I am not going to, I'm trying to hold off until I finish another project. Well, I think I'm going to show that actually in the knitting section of the show, which I'm recording after this. But there's just gorgeous projects in this book. So you'll probably see this again. Excuse me. It is by Martingale, published by Martingale. And if you like sewing, if you like quilting and embroidery, this is a great book. Another small item I bought, this is not anything very big, but I've told you about Block magazine, and I did get another Block magazine, but I forgot to bring it over here. When I ordered that jelly roll from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, I bought some of their storage boxes for their Block magazine. I bought 2 of them. I may buy another one next time I order from them. So they come like this, and then you pop the box out and your Block magazines fit in there. I plan on keeping those because they're really like books, but when I have them on a bookshelf, they start, sorry, my voice is, so when I have them on a bookshelf, they start curving and bending, and then they don't lie flat. So this is what they have that you can put the magazines in. I am going to take a break and get a drink of water. So, yeah, thanks. One more quilting thing. I did a vlog. I decided to make a table runner. I was going to make this table runner last November or December, sometime back last year, and I never did it. So it is Christmas fabric, but I thought, well, if I make it now, I'll have it. I can't really use it right away. So this is the table runner. And what I did was, in the process of making it, I just recorded steps along the way and spliced them all together with no special stuff in there. So if you want to see some of the process of making this, then you can check that out. It's called Disappearing 9-Patch Table Runner Vlog, I think, something like that. But if you subscribe to the channel, you can see it easily. It'll come out probably shortly after this episode. And I had fun with it. If you want to know how to make a disappearing 9-patch, just look at the Missouri Star Quilt Company or other people. There are lots of short things, less than 5 minutes on how to do that. But this is more, it's just me explaining kind of decisions. I didn't have a pattern for this, so I talk about it, and I had a few things go wrong on the way, so you get to see that too. So, and I do it downstairs in my sewing studio. So actually, not really studio, it's just a room. Anyway, so that's another thing that'll be coming up soon on the show. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to leave comments below. I'd like it if you could subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much. Bye.